Eli Carter never liked card games, but that cold night in the small frontier town of Red Hollow, he needed a warm place to sit and a little noise to break the silence that had followed him for the last few weeks. He had delivered supplies earlier that day and planned to ride back to his ranch in the morning. The wind outside howled, and the saloon lanterns made the wooden walls glow softly. Eli stepped inside, nodding at a few ranchers he recognized. He wasn't there to gamble, but the men called him over, offering him a seat at the table. He agreed, thinking it would pass an hour or two. Most rounds were harmless, small coins traded back and forth. Eli didn't care if he won or lost. He played slowly and quietly, the way he lived his life. But this night changed direction when a stranger walked in, a tall, angry-looking gambler with unsteady steps and a half-empty bottle hanging from his hand. The man slapped his money on the table and joined the game with a wild grin, betting more recklessly with each turn. People laughed at his boldness, but Eli felt uneasy. Something about the man seemed off, like he was carrying not just anger, but desperation. After a few rounds, the gambler began muttering about things he had no use for. Each time someone raised the bet, he pushed in more money, more belongings, anything he had. Then, in the final round, he leaned back, swaying slightly, and said something that made the entire table fall silent. "I'll bet the girl," he growled, pointing behind him. At first, everyone thought he was joking. Men chuckled nervously. Eli frowned deeply, unsure what he meant. But the gambler snapped his fingers, and a thin, frightened young girl stepped forward from the shadows by the door. She looked about 15, maybe younger, wearing clothes too big for her hair tangled from travel, and her eyes wide with exhaustion. She held herself tightly like she expected someone to yell at her any moment. Eli's stomach twisted. He pushed his cards down and said, "That's not something you put in a bet." The gambler waved him off. "She follows me around. Wants food, wants help, wants everything. I'm tired of it. If you win, she's your problem." The dealer hesitated, but the gambler insisted again and again. Everyone at the table looked away, uncomfortable. No one wanted to get involved. The room felt heavier with each passing second. Eli didn't like what was happening at all. But he also saw something in the girl's eyes. Fear and hopelessness mixed into one. She looked like someone who had been pushed around too long. Eli placed his final coins on the table, not because he wanted to play, but because he wanted to stop whatever this man was doing. The round ended quickly. Eli won without even trying. The gambler cursed and shoved the girl toward him. "She's yours now," he said sharply. "I don't want her following me." Eli stood up, shaking his head. "She's not something to throw away. She's a child." "Take her," the gambler snapped. "I'm going north. She's slowing me down." Then he stormed out of the saloon, slamming the door behind him. People stared for a long moment, then slowly returned to their drinks and games, pretending nothing unusual had happened. No one stepped forward. No one asked about the girl. No one wanted the trouble. Eli sighed, took off his hat, and looked gently at the girl. "I'm Eli," he said softly. "You're safe for now. Come on, let's get you something warm to eat." She hesitated, unsure if she could trust him. Her arms trembled from cold and fear. Eli moved slowly, not wanting to scare her. He walked toward a table by the stove and signaled for the cook. The girl followed, little steps at a time, like a stray animal unsure if the hand reaching out was kind or cruel. When the cook brought warm stew and bread, she stared at the bowl but didn't touch it. Eli realized she might think there would be punishment for eating too much. So he took a spoon himself and said, "It's yours. Eat as much as you like. No one here will take it from you." He slid the bowl gently toward her. She picked up the spoon with shaking hands and took small bites at first. Then, as the warmth of the food spread through her, she ate faster, almost unable to control her hunger. Eli didn't say anything. He just waited until she slowed down, breathing more evenly now. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. She looked at the table, then whispered, "Mary." Her voice was soft, like she hadn't spoken in days. Eli nodded kindly. "All right, Mary. Do you have any family around here?" She shook her head. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she wiped it quickly, afraid of showing weakness. She told him bits and pieces, how she lost her family months ago in an accident, how she wandered from camp to camp hoping someone would help her, how the gambler let her stay only if she worked and stayed out of the way. She said she slept outside most nights because he didn't want her in his tent. She had nothing, no friends, no home, and no one to protect her. Eli listened without interrupting. He could feel how heavy her story was. She wasn't trying to gain pity. She was simply explaining why she had nowhere else to go. When she finished, she stared at the table again, like she expected him to tell her to leave. Instead, Eli said softly, "Listen, Mary. You're not staying here in this town alone tonight. It's cold and dangerous. I have a ranch a few miles from here. You can come with me until we figure out something safe and proper." Her eyes widened with fear and confusion. Won't you be angry if I slow you down?" "No," Eli said simply. "You'll be safe. That's all that matters right now." She didn't answer for several moments. It was clear she didn't trust easily. She had been let down too many times. But she also had no place to sleep and no warm clothes for the freezing wind outside. When she finally nodded, it was small and uncertain, but it was a sign she wanted a chance at safety. Eli gently placed his coat around her shoulders. She grabbed it tightly like it was a shield against the world. They walked out of the saloon into the cold night. The street was quiet, the lamps flickering, the wind carrying dust across the empty road. Mary walked close to him, not because she fully trusted him, but because he was the only person treating her like a human being rather than a burden. At the stable, Eli prepared his horse and helped Mary climb up. She was nervous, maybe not used to riding. Eli mounted behind her, careful to keep distance, guiding the reins. The horse stepped into the dark plains, beginning the quiet ride back to the ranch. Mary didn't speak on the journey. She kept her eyes ahead, trying to understand this strange twist in her life. Eli kept reassuring her in a calm voice, telling her they were almost there, that she would have a warm place to sleep. The moon lit the path, and the cold wind softened as they neared the ranch. When they reached his small wooden home, Eli helped her down gently. "You can sleep inside," he said. "I'll give you blankets and a safe space. You don't need to worry tonight." Mary stepped inside slowly, as if expecting someone to yell or order her out. But the place was quiet, just the soft crackling of a fire Eli hurried to build. He handed her a cup of warm tea, and she held it with both hands like it was the first warm thing she had touched in a long time. She looked around the little room, simple furniture, clean floor, calm atmosphere. It wasn't fancy, but it felt safe. Something in her eyes softened slightly. Eli set up a bed for her, leaving enough distance to show respect and give her space. "Rest," he said gently. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." Mary lay down slowly, still unsure, still scared, but also strangely comforted. She watched the fire flicker. She listened to the quiet sounds of the ranch. For the first time in months, she wasn't outside in the cold, and no one was shouting at her. As she drifted to sleep, she wondered if this rancher, who she had only met hours ago, might be the first person in a long time who didn't want anything from her, except to make sure she was safe. And Eli, sitting silently by the dying firelight, knew one thing for certain. Winning that poker round wasn't luck. It was a moment that placed a lost child in front of him, and whether he liked it or not, her life was now tied to his in a way he didn't yet understand. Something had begun that night, something neither of them could have predicted. A choice, a responsibility, a second chance at life for a girl who had been forgotten by the world. And he was determined not to fail her. The sun rose slowly over the quiet land around Eli Carter's ranch. A thin layer of frost covered the grass, glowing like silver dust in the early morning light. Inside the small wooden house, Mary woke up with a startled breath, unsure for a moment where she was. For months, she had been sleeping on hard ground, in abandoned places, or wherever she could rest without being told to leave. But here, under a real roof, with warm blankets, she felt confused. Her mind needed time to accept she was safe for the moment. She sat up slowly. The room was simple but clean. A faint smell of wood smoke drifted in from the main room. She listened carefully, expecting someone to shout or call her for work, but there was only silence. A few birds chirped outside. A soft breeze brushed the window. It felt strange, almost unreal. Mary stepped out of the small room and found Eli already awake, boiling water on the stove. He glanced at her and offered a calm smile. "Morning," he said softly. "Did you sleep all right?" Mary nodded timidly, unsure if she was supposed to speak first or wait for permission. She wrapped her arms around herself, still wearing the coat Eli had given her. It felt too nice, too warm, and she wondered if she should return it. "You can keep the coat for now," Eli said, reading her thoughts. "It's cold out here. You need it more than I do." Her cheeks warmed. She looked down, feeling shy again. She wasn't used to kindness. Kindness made her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. Eli poured hot water into a tin cup and handed it to her. "Sit, drink this. We'll have breakfast soon." She took the cup carefully. Her hands were so thin and rough from months of struggle. When she sipped the warm liquid, her eyes softened. She never expected simple warmth could feel like comfort, yet here she was, feeling more human than she had in a long time. Eli kept working quietly, scrambling eggs and slicing bread. He didn't force conversation. He sensed she needed silence more than questions. After they finished breakfast, Eli stood and put on his old hat. "I need to check the animals," he said. "You can rest inside. You don't have to help unless you want to." Mary nodded quickly. She didn't want to bother him. She didn't want to cause trouble. Eli stepped outside, and for a moment, she watched through the window as he walked toward the barn. His steps were steady and calm. She wondered what kind of person treated a stranger, especially a lost girl, as gently as he treated her. After a few minutes, she felt restless. Sitting alone in the quiet house felt strange. She had spent so long being pushed around that going still made her nervous. She peeked outside. Eli was feeding the horses, brushing their coats with firm but gentle hands. The animals trusted him easily. Mary hesitated but then stepped outside slowly, walking toward the barn. When Eli noticed her, he gave her room, making sure she didn't feel forced to join him. "You don't have to work," he reminded her. I want to see," she said quietly, eyes dropping shyly. "All right," he said with a small nod. He showed her the horses from a safe distance. She watched them with wide eyes. Their power, size, and calm nature amazed her. She reached out tentatively to one of them, but then pulled her hand back as if she might be scolded. "You can touch him," Eli said, "but only if you want to. He won't hurt you." Mary stepped closer. The horse lowered its head, breathing warm air against her fingers. She froze for a moment, then let out a small breath. Something inside her softened. She gently stroked the horse's neck, a tiny smile forming on her lips. It was the first real smile Eli had seen from her. "That's good," Eli said. "Animals know when someone is kind." Mary looked at him quickly, almost surprised that he thought she was kind. No one had called her that in a long time, not since before her life fell apart. As the day went on, Mary watched Eli repair a fence outside the barn. She sat on a log, silent but observant. Eli worked with skill and patience, not complaining once. She wanted to help, but she didn't dare ask. After a while, Eli noticed her watching him closely. "You can hand me the nails if you like," he said gently. "Only if you want to." Mary stood up quickly, almost too quickly, worried she had taken too long. She picked up the box of nails and held it for him. Eli thanked her, and something inside her chest warmed slightly. Being useful made her feel less like a burden. As the morning passed, she began handing him tools without being asked. Eli didn't make a big deal of it. He simply accepted each tool with a calm nod. Slowly, Mary felt the nervous tightness in her body loosen. After they finished the fence, Eli turned to her. "You did good. Thank you." Her breath caught. Simple words, but they hit deeper than he knew. Later, Mary went back to the house to sweep the floor. It wasn't dirty, but she wanted to help. She cleaned the table, dusted the shelves, folded blankets, and arranged firewood neatly by the stove. She worked silently, almost hiding her movements. She didn't want Eli to think she was trying to take over. She just didn't want to feel useless. When Eli came inside at noon, he blinked in surprise. "You did all this?" She nodded carefully. "Sorry, I just wanted—" "No," he interrupted softly. "Don't apologize. It means a lot. Thank you." Her eyes dropped again, but this time she felt something gentle blooming in her chest, like a tiny piece of trust, small but real. Their days together fell into a quiet rhythm. Mary didn't talk much, but each day she seemed to understand more about the ranch and how things worked. She watched Eli closely, how he treated animals, how he spoke with calm respect, how he solved problems without anger. She had never known an adult like him. Little by little, she helped more. She fed the chickens, collected eggs, swept the porch, arranged tools, and even learned how to milk a goat. Eli never demanded anything from her, never shouted, never treated her like she had to earn her keep. That was the biggest surprise for her. One afternoon, a storm rolled in faster than expected. Dark clouds swallowed the sky, and strong wind shook the trees. Eli rushed outside to bring the cattle into the barn before the rain hit hard. He ran from one end of the field to the other, guiding the animals through the gates. Mary watched from the porch, her heart racing. The wind whipped at the fences, and one of the smaller calves panicked, running in the wrong direction. Eli hurried after it, but the calf got stuck in thick mud near a ditch. Without thinking, Mary ran into the storm. The rain had begun to fall heavily, soaking her clothes instantly. Eli glanced back and shouted, "Mary, stay on the porch!" But she didn't stop. She moved quickly toward the calf, slipping in mud but forcing herself forward. Her small hands grabbed the calf's neck gently but firmly, pulling it away from the ditch. Eli rushed to her side, and together they guided the frightened animal toward the barn. When the gates finally closed and the cattle were safe, Eli looked at her, breathing hard. Rainwater dripped from their clothes. Mary stared at him, nervous she might be scolded for ignoring his warning. But Eli shook his head and said, "You were brave. Thank you." Mary felt her chest tighten. She wasn't used to being praised. The storm raged around them, but in that moment she felt warmer than she had in months. After they dried off and warmed themselves by the fire, Eli made her drink hot tea. "Next time," he said gently, "tell me before you run into a storm." She nodded shyly. "I just wanted to help." "And you did," he replied with a soft smile. "More than you know." In the following days, Mary stopped flinching at every noise. She slept deeper. She ate without fear of being told she didn't deserve it. The ranch began to feel like a place where she could breathe again. She still had shadows in her heart. Months of struggle don't disappear in days, but the heaviness slowly lifted. But life is never quiet for too long. In town, whispers had started. People had seen Eli return with a young girl they didn't recognize. Some assumed things without knowing the truth. Some judged without understanding. Rumors travel fast on the frontier. And soon, those whispers reached ears that carried authority. A law officer mounted his horse one morning, heading toward Eli's ranch with questions that would test everything. Mary didn't know trouble was coming. Eli didn't know it either. But the peace they had built was about to be challenged in a way neither of them expected. The morning the law officer arrived, the ranch was quiet, almost peaceful. Eli had woken early to check the fences after the storm from the previous day. The sky was clear, the ground still wet, and small puddles reflected the soft sunlight. Mary was sweeping the porch, humming softly, something Eli had never heard from her before. It wasn't a full song, more like a nervous habit, but it showed she felt safer than she once had. Eli looked at her for a moment and felt a strange sense of hope. She seemed lighter today, less like someone waiting for the world to fall apart. She had been through too much for someone her age, and seeing her find a little peace made him feel like everything he had done was worth it. But peace rarely lasted long in a place where rumors traveled faster than horses. Around mid-morning, the sound of hooves echoed from the dirt road that led to the ranch. Mary stiffened instantly. She leaned her broom against the railing and stepped back, fear rising in her eyes. She had learned to fear strangers. Every new face in her past had brought uncertainty and risk. Eli saw her freeze and stepped gently toward her. "It's all right," he said calmly. "Let's see who it is." A rider approached, a law officer wearing a brown coat and a badge pinned to his chest. His horse slowed as he neared the gate. He dismounted with steady, practiced movements, then looked directly at Eli with a firm expression. "Morning," the officer said. "Name's Deputy Warren." "Morning," Eli replied just as calmly. "What brings you out here?" The deputy adjusted his hat. "Mind if we talk inside? I've got some questions." Mary stepped back another inch. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her shirt. Eli noticed her breathing growing quicker. He shook his head gently, telling her without words to stay calm. "We can talk on the porch," Eli said. "Nothing private out here." Deputy Warren nodded, folding his arms. He glanced at Mary, then back at Eli. "I've been hearing things in town," the deputy began carefully. "People talking about a girl you brought back from Red Hollow. Some say you won her in a gambling game." Eli sighed. He knew this day might come, but he had hoped he would have more time to help Mary before questions started. He crossed his arms slowly. "That's not how it was," he said. "The gambler tried to dump her. I didn't want her left alone in the cold. I brought her here so she'd be safe." Deputy Warren studied Eli's face, trying to decide if he was telling the truth. Then he looked at Mary again, small, nervous, clearly frightened. Mary's hands shook. She looked like she wanted to disappear. "It's okay," Eli murmured, turning slightly toward her. "You can tell him the truth. You won't get in trouble." Mary swallowed hard. She felt her voice trapped behind fear, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. Eli gave her space, not pushing, not rushing. The deputy softened his tone. "Young lady, I just need to know if you're here by choice. Are you safe?" Mary stared at the ground. She felt the weight of every moment from her past pressing on her, every wrong person she trusted, every place she had been sent away from. She was terrified that telling the truth might lead to being taken away again, back to streets and cold nights. But she looked at Eli standing beside her, calm as always, steady as a rock. She realized he wanted nothing but her safety. She finally spoke, her voice trembling at first. "I'm safe here. He didn't take me. I asked to come." The deputy nodded slowly. "And the gambler? Was he mistreating you?" Mary's eyes filled with tears she tried to hold back. He didn't hit me, but he didn't want me. He only let me stay around if I did chores. Then he tried to get rid of me." Her voice cracked. Eli placed a gentle hand on the railing near her, not touching her, just offering silent reassurance. Deputy Warren listened with a serious expression. He made a few notes on a small pad. "All right. Thank you for telling me. That helps." He turned to Eli. "I'll need to file a report. The county will want to look into this." He paused, then added, "Until they sort things out, she can stay here, but under temporary supervision." Eli nodded without hesitation. "Whatever you need. I want everything done right. I just want her safe." Mary looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes. Deputy Warren cleared his throat. "One more thing. The gambler, Jeb Grayson. He's been making noise around town. Claims you stole the girl from him." Eli's jaw tightened. "He didn't want her. He practically shoved her at me." "I believe that," the deputy replied. "But he's angry, and angry men do stupid things. Be careful." Eli nodded. "I always am." The deputy tipped his hat and mounted his horse again. Before riding away, he looked at Mary once more. "If you ever feel unsafe, you can come to the sheriff's office." Mary nodded faintly. As the deputy rode off, Mary exhaled shakily. She looked like she might collapse under the stress. Eli motioned toward the porch chair. "Sit," he said gently. "You're all right?" Mary sat down slowly. Her hands were still trembling. I thought he'd take me away." Eli shook his head. "You told the truth, and you're safe here, I promise." Her eyes filled with tears she quickly wiped away. "I didn't want to be trouble." "You're not," Eli said firmly. "Not even a little." For the rest of the day, Mary was quiet. She helped with chores but seemed lost in thought, worrying about what might happen next. Eli kept things as normal as possible, showing her how to feed the goats, letting her sit by the fire in the evening, giving her space to breathe. But that night, as darkness settled over the ranch, danger arrived sooner than either of them expected. It started with the faint crunch of footsteps outside the barn. Eli had just finished locking the back door when he heard a slurred voice shouting from the yard. "Carter, you think you can steal from me?" Eli stepped outside cautiously. Mary, who had been near the window, froze again. She recognized the voice immediately. Her whole body stiffened with fear. Jeb Grayson, the gambler, stumbled toward the fence. His face was red, his steps uneven, his anger boiling out of control. "You tricked me!" he shouted. "You tricked me out of what was mine!" Eli walked to the porch, keeping distance. "You need to leave," he said firmly. "You're not welcome here." Jeb pointed a shaky finger. "That girl follows people like a stray dog." "She was my responsibility, and you took her." Eli's voice stayed calm. "You abandoned her. You didn't take care of her. You threw her into a card game like she was nothing. You don't get to claim her now." Mary stood behind the door, trembling so hard she could barely stay upright. Every word Jeb shouted brought back the memory of cold nights, fear, chores, and loneliness. Jeb stomped toward the gate. "I want her back." Before anything else could happen, the sound of a horse galloping broke through the tension. Deputy Warren rode up fast, stopping only a few feet from Jeb. "Grayson!" he barked. "Enough!" Jeb turned, startled, but too drunk to think straight. "He stole from me." "You admitted earlier in town that you didn't want her," the deputy said. "You said you were done with her. That's recorded. And now you're harassing a man at his own home." Jeb's face fell. He didn't think the deputy had heard that part. "Get on your horse," the deputy ordered. "You're spending the night in the cell to sober up." Jeb tried to protest, but the deputy didn't let him. He guided the gambler toward the road, keeping him away from the ranch. As they left, Mary stepped out onto the porch, clinging to the railing for balance. She watched the gambler disappear into the distance, feeling a strange mixture of fear and relief. The deputy returned a moment later. "He won't bother you tonight," he told Eli. Then he looked at Mary with a gentler expression. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Mary nodded slowly, though her eyes still carried the weight of past fear. After the deputy left, Eli turned to her. "You're safe," he said again, softly but firmly. Mary took a shaky breath. For the first time, she started to believe those words might be true. The trouble had come and passed. But the news the county would find in the coming weeks, the news about Mary's past and her only surviving family, would change both of their lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The weeks after the gambler's outburst passed slowly, but not quietly. Eli tried to keep life on the ranch calm for Mary, giving her a simple routine she could hold on to. Every morning she helped feed the chickens and goats. Every afternoon she swept the porch or organized tools. Sometimes she sat under the big oak tree behind the house, just watching the sky, trying to understand the strange new life she was living. But even in the calm days, she could feel something heavy in the air. She knew the county was searching for information about her. She knew they were trying to find out if she had any family left, and she didn't know what she hoped for. Part of her wanted to stay. Part of her feared being taken away again. Eli did his best not to let his worry show. He kept teaching her small things: how to tie rope the right way, how to carry water without spilling, how to keep animals calm during storms. He never pushed her, never raised his voice. Mary trusted him more each day, even though she still didn't talk much about her past. One cold morning, a wagon approached the ranch carrying Deputy Warren. Mary froze when she saw it. Her heart jumped into her throat. She knew the officer wouldn't come all this way unless the county had news. Eli stepped forward, meeting the deputy before he even reached the porch. "Morning," Eli said quietly. Deputy Warren nodded. "Got word from the county office. They found something." Mary stood behind Eli, gripping the edge of the door. The deputy looked at her gently. "It's good news," he said. "Better than what we feared." Mary took a small, shaky breath. Eli waited silently. "We found your only living family member," the deputy continued. "Your mother's older sister, your aunt. She lives 2 states east. She's alive, and she wants to take you in." Mary's eyes widened. For a moment she didn't breathe, didn't blink. She had gone so long believing she had no one left. She whispered, "My aunt?" The deputy nodded. "She wrote back immediately. She said she's been searching for you for months but didn't know where to look." Mary's legs felt weak. She held onto the door for balance. She didn't know whether to cry or to smile. She didn't even know what emotions were inside her. Relief, fear, hope, sadness, confusion. Everything mixed together at once. Eli spoke gently. "When can she see her?" The deputy looked down at his notes. "She's elderly and can't travel, but she wants Mary to come live with her as soon as arrangements can be made." Mary felt her throat tighten. She had dreamed of belonging somewhere, of having family again. But she also felt the weight of the ranch behind her, the warm place that had protected her, the safe room she slept in, the man who treated her kindly when she had nobody. Deputy Warren looked at her again. "There's something else. The county wants to know what you want. You're old enough to say how you feel, if you're willing to go." Mary looked at Eli, searching for guidance. He didn't push her. He didn't tell her what to do. He simply knelt down to her level so she wouldn't feel small. "That choice is yours," he said softly. "Whatever you choose, I'll respect it." Mary's voice was almost a whisper. "Would she care for me?" "I believe she will," the deputy said. "She sounded worried about you. Very worried." Mary's heart fluttered with a feeling she had nearly forgotten, being wanted by someone who shared her blood. But leaving the ranch meant leaving safety, leaving Eli, leaving the first real home she had felt since she lost everything. The deputy gave her a day to think. "I'll return tomorrow," he said. "It's important, but it doesn't have to be rushed." Eli nodded and thanked him. After the deputy rode away, Mary sat on the porch steps, hugging her knees. Eli sat beside her, giving her space to think. "What do you feel?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she whispered. "I'm happy and scared and sad." "That's all right," he said. "Big choices feel like that." Mary stared at the ground. "If I leave, I'll miss this place." Eli smiled gently. "You'll always be welcome here. Always." She blinked fast, trying to keep tears from falling. That night she lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. She remembered cold nights in strange places. She remembered hunger. She remembered fear. But she also remembered Eli's calm voice, warm meals, soft blankets, and the safety she never thought she'd feel again. By morning, she had made her choice. When Deputy Warren returned, Mary stood beside Eli with her hands clasped together. Her voice was soft but steady. "I want to meet my aunt," she said. "I want to go." The deputy nodded respectfully. "We'll arrange it." Eli put his hand gently on her shoulder. Not to hold her, not to keep her, but to show her he supported her decision completely. Over the next few days, preparations were made. The county arranged guardianship papers. A stagecoach ticket was bought for Mary. Deputy Warren agreed to escort her halfway, then another officer would meet them to take her the rest of the way. Mary tried to stay brave, but each step felt heavier. She helped Eli with chores like usual, but her movements were slower, her eyes softer with sadness. On the morning she had to leave, Eli loaded her small bag onto the wagon. She didn't own much, but Eli made sure she had warm clothes, a good pair of boots, and a little satchel with food for the road. Mary stood beside the wagon, trembling. She didn't know how to say goodbye. She had no words big enough to express what the ranch had given her. Eli knelt to her again, so she didn't feel small. "Listen," he said softly. "You're not leaving because you weren't wanted. You're leaving because you have a future waiting for you. A good one." Mary's eyes filled with tears she couldn't hold back anymore. Will I ever see you again?" "If you want to," Eli said. "And if life allows, then yes. My door will always be open." She threw her arms around him suddenly, hugging him tightly. It was the first time she had hugged anyone in months, maybe years. Eli returned the hug gently, making sure she felt safe, but not trapped. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved yourself," he replied. "I only helped a little." Mary stepped away slowly and climbed into the wagon. As it began to roll away, she kept her eyes on Eli until the ranch faded behind the hills. She clutched a small folded note she had written for him, tucked secretly under the firewood by the stove. She knew he would find it later. When the wagon disappeared down the long dirt road, Eli stood alone in the quiet morning. The ranch felt strangely empty, but he didn't regret anything. He knew she was heading toward a life she deserved, a life where she was loved, where she belonged. 2 months later, a letter arrived in his mailbox. The handwriting was uneven but recognizable. "Dear Eli, I am safe. My aunt is kind. She smiles when she talks to me. She makes me warm meals every day. She says I am her family, and she is happy I came. I am learning to read better, and I help her with small things in the house. I miss the ranch, and I miss the animals. I miss your calm voice, and the way you never made me feel like a bother. Thank you for helping me when I had no one. I promise I will work hard and make you proud. Your friend, Mary." Eli read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer where he kept important things. He stepped outside, breathing in the warm air of spring. The ranch was quiet, but for the first time, he felt something brighter filling the silence. He hadn't won a girl in a poker game that night. He had won a chance to protect someone who needed protection more than anything. and she, in return, had reminded him how powerful kindness could be. In the end, what came next truly had changed everything, for both of them.